Good morning. John Smith, Corinne Smith with Central Beekeeper Supply. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about questions that are commonly asked by our new beekeepers, first-year beekeepers. We're going to start trying to do a quarterly Q&A. We would really like for y'all to be involved with us on this on our channel. For those of you who don't know, we're based here in Russellville, Arkansas. You can find our channel on YouTube page at centralbeekeepersupply.com. I think that you will find some interesting footage there for everyone to watch. Family-based footage, we hope very knowledgeable to the beginning first-year beekeeper as well. So today we're going to address a lot of those comments.
Those questions we get a lot in the store by new beekeepers or novice beekeepers that come in and ask these questions.
And in that way, if y'all have questions, also post them on our YouTube page to us on this video. We'll be glad to get back with you with an answer. And I think we're kind of ready to get started here with some of these questions. So if you have a better answer or you have a question tied to the answer, please comment. So.
Yeah. And we also are going to plan on having these quarterly, so we'll have another one in March. So if you have questions along the way that you want answered on the next video, put that on there. In March, we're going to cover swarming and splitting. So that is always a big topic.
That's a big
Lots
one.
of questions, lots of good information. So we're looking forward to that one.
A lot of rabbit trails with swarming.
But now it's winter, even here in Arkansas. Last week it was 60s. Today I think the high's 45. So we're going to jump into some questions about winter beekeeping. So the first one, how warm, we get this a lot, how warm does it have to be for me to open the hive in the winter? Do I need to open them? Is there a reason to open them in the winter? And if so, what am I looking for?
There very well could be a reason for you to have to open a hive in the winter. Let's address the factors that would make it a don't open the hive in the winter. Cloudy, drizzling rain, cold, high winds. Temperature. Now, the temperature is your forgiving factor that is changed by all the four mentioned items. So if it's 55 degrees and there's no wind, we got direct sun, you're perfectly fine. You can open that hive up long enough to do what you're wanting to do. I would think when it's this cold, one of the only things you would be doing is maybe adding pollen subs or feed, something of that nature. Your medications would typically be done by now. But any of these factors, if it's 55 and the wind's blowing, you got a wind chill that's dropping that. If it's 55 and cloudy, you know, there's an issue with the bees going to be grumpy. The rain, of course, that's a given. But 55 and above on a still, calm, bright day, you'll be safe.
And then something else to add is if it's going to be cold that night and you're opening them up there too long, you're letting that heat out, and they've got to build that back up for the night. So not necessarily time to do an inspection.
No, midday if at all possible. Okay. Peak heat.
Okay. Well, if they get in there and they see that they do not have the honey stores and they need to feed, how do they do that, and what do they need to feed in the winter?
Jason, by the way, is with us, our awesome video photographer dude. He has got that captured on a winter feeding video, but you have several choices. It will take a long time to explain each and every one, but they are as follows. You have feed that can be applied in a solid between the outer cover and the inner board, which is a fondant, pro winter. You can even add their pollen to that concoction over winter. A thick syrup if you're going to feed them in a feeder in the hive, such as a Pro Sweet, or if you mix your own, that's perfectly fine. But I'm encouraging you it needs to be super thick, not just a 2-to-1. Sugar, granulated sugar, you can use that. You can turn that granulated sugar into a sugar brick on a frame and drop it in beside the cluster. You can put it on top of the bee's cluster. Several ways to go with that, but those are a few of the methods.
Okay. All right. So we get this one a lot, especially here in Arkansas, because people can get in their hives so late and going into winter. They come in, hey, I got in my hive, there was no brood. Am I queenless? Where am I going to get a queen? So are they most likely queenless?
No. From November to now, let's just start in that gap. I'll have people each week, as we're in this month, beekeepers, good beekeepers. They go into those hives. They feel like bees should either be bumper crop brooded up or maintaining a brood. And the true story to all that is these queens, our queens that are in the hives, if they're functioning properly, respond to the weather in a manner that they may back off that brood due to low feed stores, overpopulation in comparison to their feed stores. They'll go on a brood break. It might be that they're getting a mite load and those bees recognize it and they pull that queen back. Hey, whoa up. Let's let this all hatch off and address these varroa issues. And then, if their numbers drop, that queen kicks back in, builds that population back up to take care of the die-off. But she will hold a population, but sometimes those queens, they decide that based off of what their colony's telling her. I'd say that this time of year, it's not impossible that they've lost a queen, but most times it's absence of her laying.
So not necessarily a time to panic.
No need to panic.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So another question we get, which is a little tricky here in Arkansas, should I insulate my hive?
Insulation in the state of Arkansas, I have found to be more of a problem than a aid to the honeybee. Reason being, in Arkansas, we roller coaster ride all through winter. You just said it a while ago. 60s last week. This morning it was 32. Wind chill of about 28.
It's not uncommon for it to be 80.
And then in 3 days' time, we may be t-shirts and 80 degrees and need sunscreen.
Yeah.
Insulation, no. I don't encourage it here because you wrap those bees up nice, toasty, and warm, and in 3 days they're sitting in 75, 80 degree. They're sitting there making water, condensation, to the point of an unhealthy level. And then next 2 days, moisture isn't all gone, we drop back down into freezing. You've set yourself up for a serious situation. So let those bees roll in their hives as they are.
Okay. All right. So we have a lot of beekeepers that are on screen bottom board, some on solid, and it was common several years ago when screens first came out to switch those bottom boards when you go into winter, put a solid back on. Right. Is that necessary? If not, do they need to slide something underneath that screen bottom board to block off the cold?
Each beekeeper should address that in their own mind, their feelings of how, does it concern me that they're on a screen bottom board? I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight if I don't do something about that. You can set that colony off, put a solid bottom board down. Set that colony back on the solid. Most screen bottom boards now come with an IPM, a corrugated blank that slides in a channel. You can slide that in. The honest truth is, when I had several colonies on screen bottom boards over winter, you and I never did anything.
Yeah, we do have pictures of snow covering the hive and it being cold, open on screen bottom board with no loss.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Now, I mean, again, that wasn't, a couple years ago when we had that hard cold.
Well, that's true, but there was, 1 and 2 inch snows on them.
Yeah.
And definitely cool temperatures.
Yeah.
But I say here's my answer. If it concerns the beekeeper, they should address it in the manner they want to do that.
So they can sleep at night.
So they can rest easy with their girls warm.
Yeah. My opinion is if the bees do what they're designed to do and cluster, they survive. If they cover brood, they don't. So, okay. All right. So the next question, and this is one you hear quite often. Yeah. So do I need to put my jacket, veil, or suit on to feed my bees?
Oh my, yes. Yes. Put it on. It literally takes seconds, under seconds when you're in the middle of it, to get Berard just beat down by the honeybees on that day that they're grumpy. You're in a good mood. You run out, you're going to do the deal
real quick,
and they just eat your lunch.
Yep.
Just put your jacket on.
How many times have we heard, I was just going to?
That's right. When it starts with I was just going to, and the person telling you has usually got both eyes full shut and their lips are,
in fact, I think I was talking to you the other day and you said all I was going to do was put reducers in.
That's all I was going to do.
Yeah.
And what happened? Got stung.
Yeah. Okay. Should I feed pollen patties or a pollen substitute?
Yes. But let me, there's rabbit trails. I have to be prompted because now that opens up a huge window. Feeding pollen at certain times is almost a must. Over winter, if your bees did not put up enough pollen, they have to have it. That's their meat to go with the potatoes. It's protein, as we all know. We're not going to get into a pollen breakdown education here, but feeding pollen, 4%, 14%, 18%, 58% crude. In the winter in Arkansas on these warm up days, we put out the dry pollen under the awning of the shed, and they just ever be in the yards there, and they're getting that pollen, and they're replenishing the pollen in the comb around the brood. It's bee bread, right? So it's fed to these young emerging bees. It's eaten by nurse bees, but they have to have the pollen in the box. You guys that like to split bees early, y'all are going to feed protein to your bees. You're probably going to start that. Some of you will start as early as mid-January. Some of you will definitely be into it by February. You want to build those bees up on that pollen and get them big. And by doing that, they've got everything in there that you want to make your splits. So health benefit, use it as a tool to push your bees to a state of huge colonization to make more bees. Yes, it's important.
Is there any concern feeding those if you aren't going to split? I mean, can you force them to swarm early?
You can, absolutely. You can also over pollen, over protein, build them too big. And if you're not the person that wants these bees to build up and you take care of that swarm, you're going to push them to an early swarm stage. So you're absolutely right. So it can go either way for you.
A balance.
Before you start that, yes, make that feeding program fit your program.
Okay. I guess that comes from experience.
Oh, yes. Yes. And the bees, you feed them, they get ahead of you and they're hanging out there in the tree.
Okay. All right. So another question is, what if it's cold like this, they can't get in there, and they don't know if their bees have enough, especially if we went, a month or a month and a half without those warmer days where they can get in there, or just that time frame doesn't fit their schedule where they can open them up. How can they see?
Let me set the stage where this makes sense. Colony of bees sitting on a stand. We're just going to say that all the beekeepers have done their due diligence. They have gotten their honey off, they have treated for varroa, they have made sure the bees are clean. Let's just say we're now into September, October, it's getting colder, but at that point we've done our homework, We know that they have a super full of honey at that point. They still got brood and honey and bees in the bottom. However that looked when we last saw it.
Okay.
Now we've got busy. We want to know, has it stayed that way? That was the question, correct?
Right.
They will go out, and if they have a hive weight on top, a lid weight, set it off, get behind that box, and lift up on the back of that hive. So it's
Just
a cantilever.
Okay.
They're only getting 50% of that weight, but it should be heavy. And if they get a hold of that and they almost just flip it off the stand, they need to address feeding. That's as simple a way as I can tell you without opening that box.
And even on a cold day, in that case, they can slip the outer cover, put some feed on the inner cover, and close it back up.
Absolutely, yeah. Outer cover off, set something over that hole so they're not piping that ventilation of that heat out. Put their patty down, put the lid back on, rock back on top. That can be done in under a minute.
Okay. And then they need to continue that.
Yeah, and those bees will probably need it. And you know, they'll feed on that as long as it warms up where they can get to it.
Okay. All right. So the next question, if I have harvested honey and I haven't eaten it or sold it or given it away, can I feed that back to my bees if I feel like they need it?
Sure. And you didn't ask this, but honey taken from any colony within your apiary can be, it's taken from the rich to give to the poor. If you have a colony who did not put up, they only put up one half super above, and this one over here just did 3 boxes, and you had more honey and you stored it instead of spending it, yeah, drop it in that box over there, fill their box up on the colony who's light.
Okay. All right. And so this is the last question that I have, and we get this a lot. So why would you run 9 frames in a 10 frame box, which is what you do? You put spacers in there and you run 9 frames, but it's a standard 10 frame box.
That's
What's
true.
the benefit?
The benefits, I guess the greatest benefit to the first year, the new beekeeper, is the extra availability of space within that hive. So in other words, it makes it easier to work that box without rolling bees, crushing bees, injuring bees. You know, with 9 frames, it's super simple to pull a first frame, set it on your frame perch, and then do your inspection, and you have room to do that inspection with 8 frames in the box. Okay. Now, most people, as we get further into beekeeping, 9 frames in a 10 frame honey super brings you more honey than in that 10 frame box. So that's been proven time and time again. And they build a roughly, what would you say, an 1/8 inch deeper comb well per side, which equivalents to a lot of honey over 9 frames.
And makes it easier on the uncapper, which is my job.
And Corinne does the uncapping, and it's a whole lot easier to catch that.
They pull it out further beyond the frame.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the number one is the ease of working.
So can I just remove a frame?
You can, but when you just remove that frame, excuse me, you need to space those 9 frames back out, because if you remove this frame and leave those 9 that are sitting there, they'll build you
another frame.
A 10th frame.
yeah, and we've experienced that too.
And we've had that happen too.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions that we have today, and we hope it was beneficial. Again, we're going to do this in March. We're going to talk about swarming and splitting. So if you have questions that you specifically want us to answer, or really John to answer in March, send those to us, put them in the comments, or if you need questions answered now, put those in the comments too. We're happy to answer them. We appreciate y'all watching. We appreciate you tuning in today.
So like and subscribe, and we thank you for your involvement. And until we see you again, roll that beautiful bee footage. Thanks for watching.